Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this Divine Renovation webinar on spiritually close, physically distant. We're really happy to welcome you to this webinar today. We've got people from all around the world on this webinar, so all of you are very, very welcome. Divine Renovation, we inspire and equip parishes to be missional and to reach out to others. And at this time, especially during this crisis, we want to say that our mission really hasn't stopped, that now more than ever, it's time to reach out to people with the good news of Jesus Christ. So during these webinars, what we're doing is we are looking at how we navigate as best as possible this season as parishes, how we can be still effective at reaching out, how we can lead well. We've done a whole series so far, and I'm going to speak in a moment about what this webinar is going to be on. But first of all, I just want to share with you, I'm going to ask Patricia to share her screen, and we're just going to talk through some of the functionalities of Zoom in case you haven't used Zoom before. I know there's a few people who are new today. I know that lots of us are spending most of our times on Zoom nowadays. So here we go. This is what your screen will look like. In the bottom left, it says, please keep your audio muted. So you are muted as you come in. We'd love you just to keep muted as we go through the webinar today. It's probably a good idea to keep your video switched off during the main input. It just helps with, there's so many people on the call, it just helps with the bandwidth for the call. But later when we go into breakout rooms, we'd love you to turn it on. There's a chat function at the bottom of the screen, so you can add your questions and comments in there. And in fact, I'd love you to share right now in the chat, where are you coming from today? Where are you joining us from? Which parish? And finally, there's reactions. You can do thumbs up, clapping to what people are saying. And in the top right-hand corner, you can choose speaker view rather than gallery view. And that means that the speaker will be more clear on your screen. So that will be more obvious to you. So just to talk through some of the structure of the webinar today, if you haven't been on one of them before, we have input at the beginning from different contributors who are going to introduce themselves in a moment. Then we have an opportunity for Q&A. So we would love you to share in the chat button your questions for our contributors, and we're going to answer those throughout the webinar. And then finally, we're going to have breakout rooms towards the end of the webinar. So that's an opportunity for you to meet with others from around the UK and further afield to hear what they're doing in their parishes. And it's just a really wonderful opportunity just to connect with others from all around the world who are trying to be missionary at this time in their parishes. So I would love to introduce some of our contributors today. We're going to start off with Jordan Kelly. Would you like to introduce yourself, Jordan?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Jordan. I'm Director of Pastoral Ministries for Polar, which is this shirt representing today. And we're in Royal Docks in East London, and I've been working there for about 4 years. So we've been in coaching for a number of years, and I was a coach as well for the network myself, and I think that's about all that's relevant for the moment. But yeah, it's good to be with you all.
Thank you, Jordan. So from the other side of London, Elisa Alberto, would you like to introduce yourself, Elisa?
Hi, well, can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, my name is Elisa. I live in Richmond, so I'm part of the senior leadership team of St. Elizabeth. I just joined recently. I moved to London about 6 months ago, so I'm supporting Parish Stephen at St. Elizabeth. I'm originally from Italy, and I just moved to London about 6 months ago.
Fantastic. Thank you, Elisa. And finally, Naz, would you like to introduce yourself, Naz?
Hi, everybody. My name is Naz. I'm isolating currently in Yorkshire, but I'm based in London usually. I run a company which is called Peter's House, and we are a small team of Catholic project creatives. So a lot of what we do is content creation and website design and things like that for the church, for parishes. My parish is also St. Elizabeth of Portugal in Richmond, where Father Stephen is. So Elisa and I are parishioners together.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Naz. So before we dive into the topic today, I'd love to just start with prayer. So I'm just going to ask Elisa to open us with prayer today. Thanks, Elisa.
In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit. Lord, I want to invite you to today and during this time, and we want to trust that you have plans for us. We want to trust that you have plans for prosperity and for goodness. So we want to trust that what you're doing around the world in the church is for having you more in our midst. Lord, thank you that you support us when we feel weak, that you are our strength when we feel lost. And Lord, I pray that today each one of us will be inspired to find new ways. Lord, I feel you're making new ways in the wilderness, and I want to pray for more of you, for reaching us more to us, and for finding new ways, creative ways, innovative ways to reaching out to you in different ways, to bring us together as your people, as your kids. And we want you to be in our midst in everything we do, not forgetting to put you in our midst. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
The Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit.
Thank you so much. So to introduce our topic today, we're talking about connecting people today. So we've ran quite a few of these webinars where we have had people express concern and worry about people who will fall away from their parish. And perhaps when we open the doors later this year, not so many people will come back. And we've been talking about connection as a really important strategy to keep people close to the parish, to keep people spiritually close. And I think this is the topic that we want to talk about today. We're going to talk about connection in lots of different ways. So connection with parishioners, also communications. What does really good communication in the parish look like at a time of crisis in particular? So we're going to start with a poll question. So this is something new we haven't done on these regional webinars before, but you're going to have a poll come up on your screen in a moment. It should come up now. And the poll question is asking you, is your parish doing something to engage your parishioners in this season? So just tick right now, yes, no, or not sure, and then hit submit. So is your parish doing something to engage your parishioners in this season? So we've heard of some parishes that have closed the doors. They're not doing anything right now. So we'd love to know what your parish is, if your parish is doing anything. So we'll give you a few moments to do that, and then it will close, and then we'll talk through the answers in a bit. But just now we're going to jump into our first topic, and this topic is the question of why do we need to connect? Why is connection important in our parishes in this season? So I'm just going to ask Elisa this question to start off with. Why Elisa, is it important to connect with parishioners during this season?
I suppose it goes back to who are you as a church, and church is of course more than the building. So if church also means gathering together in prayer and being like a community, then the fact that you're not into the building, I'm not in the church, just for you to know. It's just a picture, but it doesn't mean that you have to be in the building to be a church. So connection, I think it's really about overcoming this physical not being together, but really finding other ways. So it's more about being creative into connecting to others. And it doesn't have to be complicated. It could just be calling up some people and just finding some way of building up relationship in other ways. So if you're not meeting personally.
Yeah. Jordan, what would you add to that? Why is connection important at this time?
I think for us specifically, it's more just about extending what we've been experiencing over the last few years in the parish on the ground. And that doesn't, kind of to Lisa's point, that doesn't end just at the boundary of the parish building walls. That goes way beyond. And so for us, I think, it's just about extending that culture throughout everything that we do. And whether that means it's online or not, it kind of doesn't make a difference. We're still striving for that kind of ultimate goal that people are coming closer to Jesus, that they're having those encounters. But with one another. And I think this has kind of forced people into a different way of doing that as well, that they have to take on responsibility for their own faith in a different way. I think this is kind of revealing something new for us. And I think it's actually been broadly quite positive for the people, from what I've heard about how much it means to them and how much they've missed Mass and how much they've missed that connection. But then we also wouldn't be doing the right thing as a parish, as a senior leadership team, if we didn't lead, right? And so that's why it's important to us. We've got to lead, we've got to show stability, we've got to show that we're still there for people, despite a lot of people having taken it on themselves. But there's quite a healthy balance, I think, in that. But mainly to Elisa's point, that it doesn't just stop at the walls of the church, right? It goes beyond. And so that's why it's just really important for us, I think.
Yeah, exactly. Because, our community still exists, right? Our community doesn't just exist in the church building. And, and that's got to continue now without the walls of the church. Yeah. Naz, is there anything else you'd add to that?
I think it's, for me, it's about looking at what defines our parish community. And I think just reinforcing Jordan's point, the community is who we are as a people, and our sort of mutual desire to sort of pursue a relationship with Christ in some way. And I think every single one of us has a responsibility to those parishes and to those communities. We've got a responsibility really for showing that our faith is still alive. And we've got a responsibility within ourselves to actually to keep our own faith alive. It's very easy to call yourself a practicing Catholic by going to Mass every Sunday, but what happens when that's taken away? What defines you as Catholic? And I think that's, so it's particularly important for us to share that witness. And I know that there's a lot of priests who've struggled to actually reach out to their parish and reach out to their communities and things like that, because it is a really tough thing. Many priests and individuals have had to sort of learn in the past month what really has been developed over the past 15 years, because it's not something that we're used to. This internet technology stuff, and so it's been very difficult for them. But I think for those priests that do have the capabilities, what's been amazing is seeing the fact that they've responded to the call of seeing their parish beyond their own community, and actually saying, okay, well, this is, the digital parish that we're kind of, all parish priests of in some way, shape or form. So that's been really, really exciting.
And you've done some innovative work with faith in isolation, which we'll hear about that in a bit. But that's been an amazing way that you've been enabling people to connect with the church during this time. So I'd love to just jump into this question of what are you doing? Like, what are you seeing working in your parish? Like, what are some of the practical things that you're seeing working? And Jordan, perhaps if you could kick off with that one, what's working with you guys?
Yeah, sure. I suppose first thing I'd say is that we took it slow. We haven't rushed into, we haven't kind of knee-jerk reaction, like done loads and loads of things, which I think sometimes in a time of chaos we can respond with chaos, or like in a time of panic you kind of respond in a panic. And I think we almost went down that road, but we kind of veered away from it. So like everything we've been doing over the last 4 years, it's got to be sustainable, it's got to be measurable, it's got to be kind of something that we can expand and grow beyond just the COVID period. We want to build stuff that's fruitful, not just reactive. And so some of the things we've done in that sense is really spent a long time getting our live stream looking good, which it does, if I don't mind say so myself, like it does look really good. Like we've got a very high quality stream. We're lucky enough to have Edwin on music as well. And we've patched that all through kind of a system. So we're doing that. We've kept it really personable as well, like very close shots, like really practical things, which I think are helping that spiritually, the name of this webinar, right? Kind of that spiritual closeness. There's something in that with how close we've even kept the camera angles, and just some really practical things like that, to the altar and to the sanctuary, and to Father James when he's preaching, he comes down from the altar and right in front of the camera. And I think that's really helped people connect. We've really utilized Church Suite as well, which is an amazingly powerful software. which is a database for churches basically, and it's run by a bunch of brilliant Christians, and I've been to a number of their seminars and workshops and stuff, and they're just amazing. I think they supply like HTB and other churches like this with the software as well. So it's quite a well-known and well-used software, but that's just been super powerful. We spent about the first 2.5 weeks just gathering people. So rather than just pumping out content or kind of reacting, as I said, we kind of just spent a long time like in all of our messaging, using YouTube, using the live stream, just calling people to connect through the website. So we just gathered information and people that way. And slowly, as that's built up, we've been able to use that as a really effective tool for communication. And after Easter, really, that's when we started to think, okay, what can we do a bit more actively to continue this connection that people are feeling? So we've started a Wednesday evening prayer group. We started up our praise and worship sessions, which we used to run once a month anyway, but we started doing those. So we've got 2 more of those coming up in May. Just familiar things that people are familiar with, right? And we're trying to avoid turning into any sort of online ministry like Ascension Presents. Like, that's great, but we're also a parish church. So we're kind of constantly walking that line between who are we actually pitching our content to. You know, we're not Father Mike Schmitz or kind of one of these people, as great as that stuff is. We're just a parish church, and we're trying to remain that way online too. As I said, kind of that extension of parish culture to the online world. I think all of that to say that I think that's really helped people feel spiritually close to the people that they know, the people that they've prayed with, Father James. Like, I think a lot of that's actually quite important in this time, like just steady, stable leadership, same with communication, and bring a bit of stability to people's spiritual lives as well. I think it's been, I think we've done an okay job so far given the circumstances. I'm quite happy with it.
Yeah. Fantastic. It's amazing. I mean, given that, you say you've been in coaching with Divine Renovation for 4 years. And so in some ways you were kind of well prepared for this to hit, like obviously it's a big shock for everybody, but you kind of had a team ready to go and it really shows, doesn't it, when you can. Yeah,
it's a good point, actually. Like we have a number of parishioners who are very close and to the sort of to the center and had really spent a long time with parish vision and like discipleship and stuff. So I think we were actually it could have been worse, I think. And I think that's partly a blessing. So yeah, it's been really cool.
So just before, I'm just going to ask Elisa in a moment, but just before we do that, just to say that, we're mentioning lots of different parishes, and Jordan mentioned Church Suite, the software, and we'll share all of those resources with you in an email following this webinar. But it's great to see people putting stuff in the chat. What I'd love is just share in the chat, what are you doing? What's your parish doing? What's working for you? And any questions that you have for any of our contributors, put them in there. Elisa, what's working for you in terms of connecting people in St. Elizabeth's?
Yeah, similar to Jordan, we had like 2 phases. Our first phase were like, we'll go right online, and we did it like in a very practical way. So we had Zoom, and we thought, okay, we're just going to move all the ministries we can and make sense on Zoom. So from the first week, I think it was end of March, we just had mass, like a daily mass on Zoom. Then we had prayer ministry, like prayer, like rosary during midday. So we had like the Stations of the Cross. And we tried to move everything we could that made sense on Zoom. And it was really like just about trying out. So it was more of a trial and error. And what we've seen is that people start learning how to access those things. So we've been communicating through the website and through social media, and also through a mailing list that we have with Church Suite. So what we've noticed is that during this time you realize that your communication platform should be easy to access and working well. So we have been doing some work already before in making sure we have a good list of new parishioners, we can reach out to them. And this time it's pushed us to become even better on that, and just making sure that we have a way to reach out to people. So it's been really like a blessing to have been using Church Suite before. We have a calendar on the website which is connected to Church Suite. So every time you want to change something on the calendar, you do it on Church Suite and automatically changes on online, which is great. So every time we have a new event coming up, that's the way we communicate to the parish. And parallel to that, we've been using social media just to make sure that people know what's going on. What we've noticed is that we moved from quantity to quality. Our focus has been from quantity to quality. So we've been finding new ways to go more into intimacy and connection at the deeper level. For instance, after Mass, Father Stephen started the blind dates. So it just starts breakout rooms. So people we have, about almost 200 people at Mass, and then they were split it into breakout rooms in a group of 4 or 5 people, and they can connect. And every time it's different, you meet new people in a way that you wouldn't have done before. And this is what we're trying to introduce. We have also worship night on Sunday, which is something we used to have in the parish. It's called Loretto Praise and Worship Night. And during that, what we do is that we start with social time. So the first 15 minutes is mainly people gathering, chatting. We just get together, and then we start at 7. And in the end, we have prayer ministry. So again, we use the breakout rooms to have groups of 3, and people pray for each other. So I guess it's if you start doing things, one thing you could do, I think, at this phase, when there is a longing for connection, it's to find ways to connect even more. And the simplest way, I think, is just taking the phone and calling someone. So we have Guardian Angels approach of just calling the vulnerable people. I think, honestly, this is more effective than any other thing. It's just making sure that people are okay and that you care about them. I think this should be the main core of the church.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that, that reaches people who are not necessarily online as well, doesn't it? It reaches the people who might not be able to access Zoom for whatever reason. I'd love to go to the poll results if we can. So we asked a poll about, is your parish doing anything to engage your parishioners? And we have, the results have just come up. So 88% said yes, 8% no, and 3% not sure. So maybe those 3% are not in touch with their parish right now. Any thoughts? Naz, what are your thoughts on the poll?
Yeah, I think it's amazing to see that. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. When just before the sort of suspension of Mass, and then the following lockdown, we sort of came together as a team, and we said, well, our job is to support the mission of the church. What is the mission when the churches are closed? And the mission was exactly this. It was just trying to communicate with people. So we came up with this project called Faith in Isolation, which basically would just try and bring people together with what they're used to in their faith, in their practices. And I think if you would have done a poll back then, which was, just before the lockdown, it probably, obviously it would have definitely been low. But actually, it's amazing to see that it's shot up so much, particularly in here. I think now people's accessibility to the sacrament, to Mass, and to participating in some way is a lot greater, which is fantastic. And I think for like I said at the beginning, there is some parishes that are going to inevitably just it's going to be a bigger difficulty for them. But what's amazing is that that's the beauty of the internet in one way. I don't know about you, but my Facebook feed has sort of become like a Deliveroo for different parishes streaming things. You've just got
it's lovely.
So it's a good thing. I think it's good.
That's fantastic. We're going to do another poll. So this should come up on your screen right now. This is the second poll we're going to do. And it's about your website. So is your parish regularly updating its website? Yes, no, or not sure. And we're going to go into this question of websites in a moment. I think we're finding that because so much stuff has moved online, and the need, we had a webinar recently with Brendan Thompson, and he talked about this digital revolution that's going to happen in the church thanks to this crisis, and I think there's definitely truth in that. We talked about the parish website being the front door of the parish. So So if you just submit your answer to that, this question about is your parish regularly updating its website, using its website, and we're going to jump into the question of websites. Naz, what do you think what's really good practice for parishes to be doing at this time with their website? What should they be doing with their website?
Well, at this time right now, I think for those parishes that are blessed with having a website, first and foremost, and also blessed with accessibility to edit it, because in my work we build a lot of parish websites, and so that's a common thing, is that actually there's often parishes who have websites, but then they're not able to edit them, not sufficiently anyway. So I'll address that in a second. But I think for those that do, the key thing really is making sure that the narrative, first and foremost, says, welcome to our parish. And that should be consistent throughout. That's not just a lockdown rule. If your parish website is saying, welcome to the website of our parish, there's something wrong. Because in a sense, the website really should be a window in which people can look and say, oh, this is a thriving community. Common mistakes, and that's going to be particularly detrimental now, are parish websites who have photographs of their parish completely empty. You might have a beautiful church, but the idea, what you want to put across through your website is that if the parish church burns to the ground, the parish is still actually there. It doesn't need to be there. And I think this is something that actually needs to be considered in normal times, in peace times, or whatever we're calling out of lockdown times at the moment. Because ultimately the parish website is something which for many parishes has more hits, has more visitors than the actual church building. And yet what we see is that we'll run fundraising campaigns and put a lot of effort towards ensuring that the structure of the church is sound, which is really important. But how often do you see a fundraising campaign for reinforcing digital infrastructure? And actually right now, I'm sure there's a lot of parishes who are struggling as a result of that. Yeah. And so I think that's really important, using that. With parish websites, it's more difficult to reach people with ongoing content. So if you're putting out videos and things like that, it's a lot more difficult because they're not going to be checking the parish website every day. But that they are going to be checking their Facebook feeds every day. So making use of that is really important. Driving people to the website through where they actually are, uploading things to social media, having resources on your parish website. So not just mass times. So having things which people can actually engage with is really, really important. Particularly, say, for example, take the classic case of somebody who ordinarily would walk into a church because they're interested in knowing a little bit more about God. I know it doesn't happen a lot, but actually right now, like a lot of my friends who have walked away from the faith are contacting me and asking me about stuff. So right now is a really big time for that. And they can't just walk to a church. They can't just go and knock on a priest's door or a friend's door. So they're going to look to websites like their local church to see what is this all about. And so you want to be mindful of that. Going back to the original point of parishes who are unable to update their websites, I think just make use of the tools that are available to you. So make use of social media, make use of emails, and do what you can with them. Just try to be creative. In as much as don't be afraid to use videography, don't be afraid to try and get people to engage more with things, asking for prayer intentions, things like that, asking your parishioners what they want to see and what they would like. That's a big thing. And the final note really is for all of the audience that I think it was mentioned in the chat earlier, for all of the audience that aren't on social media and aren't on Facebook and don't actually have access to these websites, your website in some way has to be represented in the way that you communicate with people on a one-to-one as well. I know for the parishes, even for my parish, Elisa mentioned it earlier, we have a database of people. They're not always that strong, but we have a database of people, and so you can actually build like like back in the 90s when they'd use I think it was called a phone tree, when people would contact each other, and you can set that. I've seen parishes set that up in their community, saying, essentially partner up with somebody that you're going to speak to once a week, and check in with each other and speak to each other about God and pray together over the phone. So those would be my sort of main points.
Great. Thank you so much, Naz. Elisa, you were going to share a little bit about social media, about how you're using that at St. Elizabeth's to reach out.
Exactly. Maybe Patricia, if you could share a few slides. I just wanted to show you some examples to maybe going to the next one, to show how we're doing it. We're not doing it perfectly, and this is really like an encouragement for you. Like anyone can start like a social media page for the parish. Like if you don't have one, and if you're longing for having more young people coming to your parish, I think this is like a place where you reach them. So as Naz was saying, I think there will be some people who don't have access, and you have to reach them in other ways. But if you want to reach out to the young people, maybe to people who are now searching for more, like I've heard that the search on Google for prayer is growing, like it's doubling almost every day. So I think the more we keep into this situation, the more people are longing for more. And you have to reach out where people are, and which is like also online. So we have like a Facebook and Instagram, which are not perfect. We're trying to improve them. We do try to make them looking as good as possible. And there's a really good program called Canva. So it's a website where you can make social media posts, and they look good even though you're not talented for it. So if you go there, and there are like some template you can use, and they look good. You save them as a picture and you post it on your website, or on your Instagram or your Facebook. So that's like a tip that I would give you, like if you want to make it looking a bit more attractive. If you go to the next page, this is like, for instance, what we've been doing for Alpha Online. We've been discussing, should we continue to do Alpha or not? And we said, no, we're going to start, because now more than ever, people are really looking for answering the big questions. So what we've done is like making some sort of marketing on the social media, but then we always connect that with something personal. Like we ask people to send personal invitations, so they can use those to send out, like via WhatsApp, for instance. And then we have testimony during Mass on Sunday, and then we publish part of the testimony on the social media. So as Naz was saying, like social media are easier to update and really to reach out. Maybe to the next, Patricia. And this is where, and the thing about connection, like we had an Alpha training with the team, and this is also creating connection. It's those are the ways where people come together. They feel they're doing something purposeful together. So don't underestimate that anything you do, which is maybe coming together to pray the rosary, or it is like to setting up an Alpha Online. This is like creating community and connection. So it's not just about communication. It's about using those communication tools to really reach out and coming together. And as a last one, maybe about the worship nights. What we try to do is like to find ways where people can connect different levels. So which is worshiping together, hearing a talk, and really like learning, and also like this prayer ministry in breakout rooms. So try to be creative and dare to try. What I always tell to myself, it's not just you doing something with an online tool. Like it's still God working through those. And like I've heard, like with Alpha Online, really people coming to faith to an online, like going through like a Zoom meeting, and I think God works through those tools as well. Like I think we have to believe that it's not just like an online tool that scares us because we're not good at it. Like God is doing it. We just need to be courageous and try new ways. And I think this is going to be part of the future. So it's not going to disappear forever.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. I think things are not just going to go back to normal all of a sudden. I think this is going to stay around for quite a while. Thank you so much. So just going to some of the questions. Someone's asked about how do you use Zoom for praise and worship music? I'm just going to jump to Jordan on this, because I know both St. Elizabeth's and Our Lady of Walsingham, you're both doing worship nights. Jordan, how do you do worship with your parish?
Yeah, so we go straight through YouTube. We were kind of already on YouTube. We used to post homilies every week. So that was kind of the driver behind the fact that we were using YouTube. And we just wanted consistency, I think. So like we did consider like bringing people into Zoom or using Zoom on our first praise and worship night. We kind of went back and forth on it for a few days before we decided just to stick with YouTube. Like we've got a big audience there. Everyone knows that it's there. We could have done both, but then we would have been asking people to go to kind of two places, like to join. And so we're just trying to keep, everything we do is just trying to keep the quality super high, super like just familiar and stuff like that. So we use just YouTube at the moment. We have kind of smaller groups meet in Zoom, but for the big things for praise and worship, we're using YouTube. And we just found that that's worked for us really well. YouTube's quite cool for that sort of thing. And and we've also got like we've got quite a technical setup just because we've got the gift of like Edwin, who's been a musician forever. And so he knows a lot about audio and stuff. And if we wanted to keep the quality high, Zoom wouldn't like cut the mustard for us, I suppose. And so we kind of went back and forth. But we do use Zoom for a lot of other prayer groups and spaces. But for the big things and for worship, to keep the quality high, we've stuck with YouTube for now.
How much sort of equipment do you think is necessary to have a decent sort of praise and worship session? I suppose it depends on how many musicians you've got, doesn't it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. To be honest, like what I think I've realised throughout all of this is that people are just appreciating everything. Like a laptop webcam is enough. Like I really mean it. Like I don't think people actually like. You know, like we like, I don't want to be like, oh, we're so good. Like we're lucky that we've got some people. We've got Edwin who knows about this stuff. Like we've got Jose who is like a parishioner of ours who like, it's his job. He's got his own videography company that knows about, do you know what I mean? It's like, we're just lucky, I think, more than anything. And we kind of use those people. I think a laptop's enough. Like if people want the music and they want the prayer time, which I think people do, and if that's something they're familiar with, then like I just think people are just loving anything that's my impression anyway, that people are just so grateful for anything. Great, so you know, like if you've got the stuff like we do, great, like we're just lucky. But if you don't, like I don't think people mind. I think just the offer and being with people and being able to connect over Zoom or getting your guitar out and playing it over Zoom, like I think that's just cool, right? People just want a connection at this time. I think it's great. And
I think you're right about the two. I think it's important that you choose one and try to stick to one. We chose Zoom and we do everything on Zoom just because that's what people downloaded and they know where to find us. And you're right, if you're looking for high quality worship, it's probably YouTube better. For us the goal was like to come and pray together and worshiping together. So Zoom was ideal. What we do is like, it needs one person with a pretty good mic, like the one that you're having, Hannah. I think it's a great one, the same that you have, Naz. So, and then there's one person doing worship. So it could be with the guitar or with a piano. And then what we do, we publish, as you could see in the picture before, you can see like you can sing together because we have a PowerPoint with the songs. And then and it's just everybody's muted, of course. You cannot really sing together because it sounds horrible. But everybody's muted, but you can still, if you want, put your camera on. If you don't want to, because you don't want to, just put it off. But it's about this, it's actually about what worship is about, which is like coming to worship God. So it's not about the perfection of the quality, but it's to have live worship, one person, and then you are worshiping together. And this is the point. So try not to get scared about the perfection, as Jonah was saying, but really try to find something that fulfills your goal.
Yeah. There's a question that is asking, what's the best tool for reaching the marginalized? And so just moving away from the kind of online stuff at the moment, like how are your parishes reaching those who are most in need at this time? I don't know who wants to jump in on answering that one.
I think reinforcing what I was saying earlier about the idea of just having sort of other means of connection other than the internet. So I think a really important one is the telephone that we've all seemed to have forgotten about in this generation, as in actually calling people, not texting them. And for many parishes, it might be a case they're not completely up to date. But what's really important is actually the database that they have, because those databases will have in them people's telephone number. You know, you'll be able to actually link people together. You'll be able to ring them and say, do you want to be a part of this, like it's happening in St. Elizabeth's? I think there's other things which can be done. I think a really important one is actually having the connections there to begin with, so that, for example, in a parish down the road from me in Yorkshire, what they're doing is they're actually getting parishioners who are sat at home to write letters to their older parishioners, which is a small thing, and it might seem like a little bit tedious, but it's actually just making that effort. You know, we're making that effort online. It's worth making the effort for those people who are completely disconnected.
Yeah.
What St. Elizabeth's been doing is this Guardian Angel service. So we've put together like a group of volunteers who went through the safeguarding process, that they've been calling up the vulnerable people. So we start reaching out to the elderly people, just calling them regularly. And there is a relationship building up, because, you know, the same people call up the same person like every week. So just making sure they're good. And I've heard story of, you know, reading books together, praying together. They've done some shopping if it was really needed. But the most important thing was really like making sure that they know somebody is there to listen to them and somebody cares about them. So really, and this is something it's been building it up. So we're now enlarging it even more, because there are people interested in doing that as volunteer. And we just see that it's creating such a beautiful community out of that. So it's I think there will be fruits out of this time that will stay, and if you made the effort to try to do something, you will see the fruits coming up afterwards.
Yeah. There's another question. How do we deliver to those likely to remain in self-isolation longer term, many of whom don't have computer access? So I'm just thinking of, you know, the elderly population, and, you know, a lot of whom are the kind of backbone of so many parishes. You know, they're all the volunteers in the parish. How do we keep connected with them who may be isolating for a longer term?
Well, I think our church has been good so far at, or at least that's what I perceive. For most churches, it's been good so far at putting teams together of Eucharistic ministers for those delivering the Eucharist, or even just setting up environments where they can be catered for or looked after, you know, have phone calls and things like that. So if we've managed to establish that so far, I don't think that it's necessarily the case that we can't do that again. I think the importance will be not getting too distracted when our churches reopen by the people that are coming in, but actually also thinking about those who are still apart, because it's going to be really easy when we come out of this stage to say, oh, okay, great, you know, we're back in business, let's, you know, continue as normal. Whereas actually for the vast majority of people, it's not, well, yeah, for a large percentage of people, it's not going to be the same.
Yeah. Let's see the results of our poll that we did on the website. So we asked people, is your parish updating its website? 73% said yes, which is really good news. No, 20%, not sure, 7%. So really interesting. Just on that topic, we did a global Divine Renovation webinar not long ago, purely on communication. So if you're interested in that, I think we'll share the link with all of you. It goes into a lot of detail on what should your email strategy be like right now, what should your social media and website strategy be like. We'll share that link with you, because we go into a lot more detail. But here, I think we're just going back to basics. I just want like one more question perhaps before we go into the breakout rooms, which is just about, I've spoken to lots of priests who have discovered that their databases are just completely not complete. And they're having to find, you know, they're having to phone up people to find out their friends' email addresses and that kind of thing. Jordan, what would your advice be to parishes that are literally having to do this kind of stuff from scratch? Like, is it worth it, or do you just wait for everyone to come back? Is it worth putting the work in to get everyone's contact details?
Yeah, it's a good question, I suppose. Yeah, I think it's partly up to your judgment. Like, what do you feel you're capable of doing? Because I think in a time like this, you don't want to put too much pressure on certain things. But my personal view is that it's probably worth it. It's probably worth it. I think just that reaching out and getting people connected is a massive. I think people are just appreciating the smallest things at the moment, like just massively appreciating the smallest things. In that case, I think just keep it simple, like whether you've started one or whether you don't have one yet, or whether perhaps you need to you need to update it or whatever. Just keep it really simple. If you're gonna commit to it, find a way of doing it. So are you going to use Excel spreadsheet, or are you going to look into, I'd really recommend Church Suite. It's so cheap relatively to what it can do. It's just a really cheap and brilliant tool. But really just keep it simple. Like if you commit to wanting to gather and to connect with people, don't include anything else in your messages for like 2 weeks. Just really, really simple. At the end of every live stream, any YouTube video, any Facebook post, any Instagram or Twitter, whatever your parish is using, or even on the front page of the website. Maybe Naz would probably have a better kind of view of that, but just keep it really, really simple. Like keep it your only message consistent, and people will respond. I think people do want connection, and they do want to be in the loop, and they do want the updates and all that stuff. So I'd say if you commit to it, just make sure that you commit to it, and don't dilute it with a bunch of other messages. And
keep it simple.
Don't put that pressure on yourself to like have to feel like you're doing loads and loads and loads. Just connect people.
Keep it simple. Love it. So we're going to, in a moment, you're going to have something pop up on your screen, and we're going to break out into breakout rooms. It's just going to be 10 minutes. We'd love you just to introduce yourself to the others in your room. And we've got 2 questions for you. What struck you from what you've heard so far? What struck you from what you've heard? And then secondly, what is your parish going to try in terms of connecting people? What is your parish going to try? So this is just a great opportunity to hear from other parishes, to be able to share your own experience yourself. So we'll have about 10 minutes, and then we'll come back together at the end just to finish up. So enjoy your discussion. So hello everyone, welcome back. I hope you had a great discussion. We are going to just very quickly share with you some of the things that we've got coming up in Divine Renovation. If you haven't seen it yet, please download the Ministering in the New Reality resource kit, which is a parish resource kit that Divine Renovation has created as a response to the crisis. It is so good, and I speak to priests all around the country who say they just haven't seen anything as good in terms of helping them through this crisis than this resource kit. So just go to divinerenovation.org and download that. That's free. If we just go on to the next slide. We have got a really exciting webinar next Tuesday. So this is the 5th of May, 1 p.m. We're going to be talking about leadership, and really we're thinking about leadership within parishes where there isn't necessarily set up a leadership team like Jordan and Elisa have been talking about. What do you do if you're a priest or if you're a parishioner in a parish where there isn't a leadership team, there isn't a leadership structure, and this is all very new to you? And you're a priest who finds yourself kind of leading by yourself at this time. So do come to that webinar next week. We have Fiona O'Reilly speaking on it with Father James Mackay, who is Jordan's parish priest, and also Father Mark Hogan, who is the parish priest in St. Peter's in Winchester. So there's going to be some really good stuff there. And then the following week, we have a really exciting webinar coming up. We're going to be talking about engaging seekers and reaching the unchurched. This is a topic which is so important right now, especially with our live streams. We're finding that people are joining our live streams from all over the place. They're not necessarily Catholic. And we are really excited that Father James Mallon and Sherry Waddell are both going to be joining us for that webinar. Plus, we're going to be hearing from parishes who are already doing innovative things to reach seekers. So please join us on May the 14th for that one. And just going on to the next slide, Father James Mallon has this new book out, Beyond the Parish, and he's looking at what could divine renovation look like on a diocesan level. So if you're interested in that, do go to Amazon, and that should be available shortly if it's not already available. And then just some contact details for some of our contributors. So Naz, these are his details. If you want a new website, this is a place to go to. Here you go, get your website sorted. Now's the time to get it fixed. There's no point waiting any longer. So Naz will help you with that. And I think that might be it for today. That might be the last slide. So lovely to see every single one of you. It's just great to be able to connect like this. It's lovely to see you, to hear you, and to be able to chat with each other and connect with each other. So I really look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, hopefully. And until then, have a great rest of your week.